As evening fell, it enveloped our neighborhood like a cozy blanket. Our backyard, scattered with remnants of fun, hid deflated balloons, and the once twirling streamers now lay tired and still. In the heart of the yard stood the Bouncy castle, silent in the moonlight. It looked different now, like a quiet, sleeping giant rather than the lively, colorful place it had been all day. I stared at it, observing how its plastic towers and bright walls boldly shaped the night sky. Yolanda, neatly folding up tablecloths, suggested keeping the Bouncy castle up so Ethan could play more tomorrow. I agreed with a nod, but I couldn't ignore the eerie way darkness seemed to fill the inside of the castle, as if purposefully keeping out the moonlight. After tidying up outside, we headed in to get Ethan and our little Ruby ready for bed. Once they were tucked in, we settled in front of the TV to unwind. Sleep came easy after the exhausting but enjoyable day. The peace, however, didn't last. In the middle of the night, Ethan appeared in our doorway, teddy bear hugged tight in his arms, waking us up. "What's the matter, buddy?" I mumbled, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. "Did a bad dream scare you?" He hesitated, eyes wide with worry. "Someone's crying in the Bouncy castle," he whispered. Thinking it was the night playing tricks, I reassured him. "It's probably the wind, or maybe a cat. Do you want to come sleep in our room?" Yolanda's sharp gasp interrupted us. Her hands hovered over the empty cradle where Ruby should have been. "She's gone." Panic quivered in her voice. Adrenaline surged through me. I leaped out of bed, heart racing, grabbing my robe and a flashlight. "Call the police," I shouted to Yolanda, my voice steady but my mind racing with fear. I burst through the back door, the moon casting ominous shadows. The Bouncy castle loomed ahead, an eerie silhouette watching me approach. The flashlight revealed an unfamiliar opening leading to a fifth chamber I couldn't remember. With each step, the cries from inside grew louder, guiding me toward that mysterious section. The sound spilled from the unexplained opening, a gap in the fabric of the castle. I hesitated but stepped into the fifth chamber, the cries urging me on. The chamber, a carbon copy of the others, was small and barren, but the crying, it came from below. "Hello!" I shouted, moving toward the center. "I'm armed. I'm not scared." My feet slipped. I tumbled down an unseen decline, flashlight escaping my grip, casting wild arcs of light as I flailed. A splash. Panic surged as I realized I was submerged in cold, shallow water. I grabbed the flashlight, revealing a whimsical inflatable ground beneath the water. The cries echoed off the walls, creating a surreal scene. What the hell, I whispered as I spun, searching the extent of the place. Then a disturbance in the water, splashes, erratic and startling. A sleek, dark shape zipped out of view, too large to be an ordinary fish. Fleeing, I attempted to climb the slippery slope, but it was futile. I turned and headed for inflatable stairs, leading to a corridor and escape from the unnerving creature. The corridor swallowed the light, revealing more chambers. Cries echoed as I followed, my wet footsteps squeaking on the vinyl floor. "Ruby!" I yelled. "Daddy's coming for you!" Exhaustion claimed me as I slumped in a chamber, clicking the flashlight off. The distant wails and skittering sounds filled the air. "Hold out, Ruby," I whispered. "Daddy just needs to rest for a moment." I might have dozed, or perhaps I simply lay in a stupor, but after what felt like an age, I summoned the will to continue. The flashlight flickered back to life, its beam cutting through the blackness once more. The further I delved, the more the labyrinth seemed to evolve around me. The chambers became more complex. Stairways spiraled upward into shadows beyond my light's reach, and bridges spanned over unfathomable depths, leaving me dizzy with vertigo. I navigated pathways that crisscrossed high above the ground, giving me the sensation of navigating through a city made of nothing but air and brightly colored plastic. This inflated empire seemed to know no bounds, and as I moved through it, a mixture of awe and terror filled me, compelling me forward in search of Ruby. The thought of retracing my steps loomed over me like a shadow, but I quickly realized I had no clue how to navigate back to the start. The twists and turns had disoriented me completely. Despair took hold and I found myself weeping, my sobs a quiet echo to the endless cries that filled the space. Yet surrender was not an option. Somewhere beyond this inflatable expanse, Ethan and Yolanda were waiting, probably frantic with worry, and somewhere ahead of me, Ruby was waiting, depending on me for her rescue. The thought of them gave me the strength to push through the despair. I had to continue, for them and for myself. As I drew closer to the source of the crying, a macabre discovery halted me. Human bones lay scattered across the chamber floors. Their stark whiteness was a ghastly contrast to the vibrant hues that surrounded me. Each set of remains bore the marks of severe trauma, with cracks and other damage that told a silent tale of violence. My heart pounding, I steadied my breathing and proceeded with newfound caution, the weight of the grim scene heavy on my mind. The chilling cries had become a beacon in the darkness, guiding me, and when they surged closer, my pulse quickened. I directed my flashlight ahead with shaking hands, and in that narrow beam, I caught the sorrowful visage of a baby's face. A wave of euphoria crashed over me. Ruby. But it shattered just as quickly when I realized this child, with hair as dark as the space around us, was not my daughter. Yet this discovery was a glimmer of hope. If this child was here, then perhaps Ruby was too, waiting to be found. My heart clung to that hope, but the moment splintered when the baby's face jerked in an unnatural rhythm, swaying to the right and then to the left. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. Stepping backward, I watched in stunned silence as several red, ominous lights blinked to life behind the child's face, and a symphony of clicks melded with its wails. The infant's face, anguished and alone, suddenly lurched out from the shadow on what I first thought was a pendulum. My mind struggled to comprehend as the true horror emerged from the dark. The head lacked a body. It was attached to an antenna on an immense centipede-like beast, a grotesque mockery of an anglerfish's lure. This wasn't an animal. It was an abomination, a terror from a realm beyond my understanding, and it was advancing toward me, each segment of its body a testament to the nightmares that now surrounded me. Panic surged through my veins as the monstrous centipede, vast as a freight train, began its pursuit. The eerie mimic of a toddler's head dangled grotesquely, swaying from side to side like a hypnotist's watch, a morbid pendulum marking each thunderous beat of my racing heart. I turned and fled, my feet desperately seeking purchase on the treacherous bouncy terrain. Each step was a gamble, the inflated ground beneath me both a savior and a traitor. It absorbed some of the creature's momentum, yet threatened to throw me off balance with every leap I took. The air was thick with the heavy, rubbery scent of the inflated world, and the cacophony of the child's cries blended with the skittering clicks of the creature's multitude of legs. It was a relentless sound, a reminder that the abomination was close, its every movement vibrating through the walls of the labyrinth. My lungs heaved, struggling to draw in air in quick, desperate gasps. The once whimsical chambers now a neon-colored nightmare that blurred past me. The kaleidoscope of colors was dizzying, disorienting, but terror lent me a clarity of purpose. I couldn't let myself be caught. I had to survive, to find Ruby, to escape this hellish place. I risked a glance back and saw the creature's countless eyes reflecting the light from my flashlight, a constellation of malice and hunger. It navigated the bouncy corridors with terrifying agility, its body coiling and uncoiling, propelling it forward in a fluid, menacing dance. Ahead, the path forked abruptly. I made a split-second decision, veering left with no time to ponder the odds of it being the right choice. Panic seized me as I hurtled into the abrupt end of the inflated corridor, the monstrous centipede bearing down behind me with the terrifying duality of innocence and horror, the child's head swinging unnervingly on its appendage. My breaths came in ragged gasps, each one a sharp stab in my chest. A pit lay before me, a gaping maw in the brightly colored expanse, the edges of it as deceptive and treacherous as the creature behind me. I felt the ground shiver with the weight of the advancing abomination, its many-legged form propelling it forward with a speed that belied its size. The childlike cries mixed with the creature's natural hiss, a jarring medley that echoed my growing dread. There was no time to think, no moment to weigh options. The beast was upon me, and the pit offered the only respite from certain death. The edge, with its narrow ledge, was no place for a standoff. With a fleeting look into the pit's seemingly bottomless depths, the decision made itself. The darkness below was unknown. It was terror incognita, but the horror behind me was all too real, all too immediate. I lunged forward, the soles of my feet leaving the inflatable ground as the creature's gaping jaws snapped shut where I had just been. Airborne, I was a comet diving into the night, surrendering to the abyss with a mix of despair and the will to survive. Wind rushed past me, a howling testament to my descent. I braced for an impact that might never come, or that might come too swiftly. Below, the darkness was not silent. It seemed to whisper with voices unknown, perhaps with the cries of those who had leapt before me. Down, down I fell, into the unknown, into the very belly of the labyrinth, perhaps even into the heart of a mystery far greater than the sum of my fears. I had escaped the jaws of the beast, but at what cost? Only the abyss would have the answer. I came to with the gritty taste of earth in my mouth and the riotous chorus of a jungle alive around me. Pushing myself up, I took in the lush greenery of the expanse, a world away from any bouncy castle or suburban backyard. Towering above me, entwined by the relentless grasp of vines, stood overgrown columns. Each was etched with the sinuous form of a centipede, an echo of the horror I had fled. Days melded into one another as I wandered the emerald labyrinth, each step a prayer for survival. When my strength waned and my spirit teetered on the brink of despair, salvation came in the form of an indigenous tribe. They found me, delirious and on the edge of collapse, by a riverbank. With a kindness that knew no language barrier, they took me in. Their care was the balm to my frayed senses, their nourishing meals a lifeline thrown across the abyss of my starvation. It was only now I realized I had ended up in the heart of the Amazonian jungle. As I regained my strength, I learned a lot from the tribesmen, adapting to the rhythm of a life so starkly different from my own. In time, they guided me back to the periphery of their secluded world, to a place where the dense veil of the jungle peeled back to reveal the bones of civilization. With a mixture of regret and relief, I bid them farewell, carrying with me the profound impact of their generosity and the indelible mark of their wisdom. The journey home was a blur, each mode of transport drawing me further from the surreal and back into the realm of the painfully real. And now, I sit in the quiet of my suburban home, a place once filled with peace, now a haunting reminder of our lost little girl. Yolanda shared that during my absence, the bouncy castle was seized for evidence, but nothing unusual was found. No tangible proof to support my story. I'm burdened with a truth no one will believe, and in that, I find myself isolated. But surrender isn't in my nature. I'm determined to return to the jungle, to the tribe, and to those enigmatic stone columns, standing tall like silent guardians of ancient secrets.